Welcome to this episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. I'm Aric.
And I'm Angie.
We are married with a ton of kids.
We have 6 kids total. He has 3 and I have 3.
My name's Hallie and I love riding horses.
I'm Lexi and I love agriculture.
My name's Carter and I love eating.
My name's Chase and I love lifting weights.
My name's Summer and I love spending my parents' money.
I'm Dane and I love baseball.
Our show is about our blended, blessed, and always a mess life. And our hope is if you find yourself in the same situation we are in, that by sharing our story, all the fun and all the mess, the challenges we are experiencing, it will give you some inspirations, laughs, and community, knowing you are not alone in this mess.
We appreciate you spending time with us. Let's dive in.
Welcome. We are excited to kick off this week's episode of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. And what is a first for us, and that is having guests on the podcast. Now, we've had our kids, but that's just here at home. So we have our whole setup with our microphones and everything super easy. But today is different because our guests are remote. And obviously that has to happen when your podcast grows and continues, where you start to Zoom in and WebEx and Google Meet and all the different ways you can have somebody on a podcast these days. So as we said a few weeks back, we are learning. And we will do our best with sound quality. And if we do something wrong, that's on us. We don't know. We'll figure it out for the next time we have a guest on. But we are super happy to have another blended couple join us today. Angie, do you want to talk a little bit about how our first guest came to be on the podcast?
Yeah. So Kim and I, we've known each other for a while, but kind of just had a group of mutual friends. And so we follow each other on Facebook, see each other at basketball, baseball, football games type of thing. We had our last podcast around the one we shared with the book that we were reading and the influencer on Facebook that had shared the book. And it's Kim. So we, as you guys know from the podcast, love that book. Love the book. Kim, I don't even know how did you come across that book?
Actually, I think somebody I follow on Instagram, just like a random person, shared it. And I was like, oh, I'll just read it. And then, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that got me connected with Kim, too, of just like, hey, love the book. Appreciate you sharing. And then it was like, oh, it'd be great to have Kim and Dustin join our podcast. So they're here and we're excited. It's like a Friday night at 6:00 and we're all just going to chat it up.
Dustin and I are going to talk about the Cardinals. You guys talk amongst yourselves. We're going to chat about the Cardinals game tonight. No, it's about the podcast. Okay, we'll get back to
focus.
I have to focus. Like one thing at a time.
Got it.
He doesn't multitask very well.
I think we're realizing that Aric and Dustin might be similar dudes.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Get discovered. Yes. Okay, so here's what I do know is that every family story is unique and different. And for Angie and I, we came together both out of divorce. But your story, Kim and Dustin, is a little bit different. So if you could just take our listeners through how that all came to be and what your guys' story is a little bit for them as they listen, knowing that, they might be listening to this from your perspective rather than where we've come from.
Well, first of all, I think our blending started from a tragedy, and I lost my husband of almost 14 years in 2013, and I had 3 boys with him. So Alan had cancer, fought for 17 months and passed away. So I was a widow, single mom, 3 boys. I don't think I ever thought in my head that I would move on or find someone else. I think in my mind, I was like, you get one love of a lifetime and you're one and done. And Alan and I had a really, hate to say perfect relationship because there's no perfect relationship, but I thought it was pretty close, and we were high school sweethearts. And I don't think we ever doubted that we would get the 60-year wedding anniversary, obviously what happened to us. So I think in my mind, I was just like, I'm going to focus on my boys and I'm going to raise them the way Alan and I had planned. And that was my goal. I know friends of mine were like, you need to meet somebody. You're so young. I think I was 35-ish, 36. But it was never really something I had on my radar. And obviously raising 3 boys, they play lots of sports and running. I just didn't even have time. And I no plans to be the bar scene. And it had been 20 some years since I had even dated. So I felt like I couldn't have even stepped my toe in the sand if I wanted to. So ironically, just met Dustin. He was a mutual friend that I had never heard of him. And we joked, I couldn't even spell his last name. He was the coach.
Say his last name because nobody else knows that. We joke that. What's your last name?
Hurwitz.
But how is it spelled?
Oh boy.
It looks French.
So many vowels. So many vowels.
Francais? Are you Francais?
Yeah, it's very French.
Yeah.
Quirouet.
All the vowels. Then I went from Brant to Atnip to that. So it's like, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So that's how I met him. I didn't know the very first time we joked that I met him at a baseball meeting. I was not really a fan of his. I thought he was incredible.
Way to be.
I can't really say what I called him.
You came back from an 0-2 count to land this. Good job.
I actually called a mutual friend that got Justin on this team, and I was like, this coach is, I don't know if I can say that. I called him a D-bag, but
Yeah,
he was incredibly cocky, I thought. And I thought he was like 25. I don't know. My radar was off, obviously.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, I knew nothing about him. I couldn't even say his last name. I didn't even know where he came from. I didn't know if he was married. I had no idea. So it wasn't ever my intention. Like, oh, when I met him, obviously, I'm just going to fast forward because there's a lot going on in between there. But we kind of just became friends, and we were together a lot because of the boys with weekend ball tournaments and stuff. And so we obviously were the only two.
Well, what happened
people.
was after I'm a little sarcastic and stuff, but then I threw the C card.
Yeah, he did.
Because I'm a cancer survivor. And so then I did that. And then she kind of
softened.
She softened. She's like, well, I can't hate him now. So,
well, I kind of did hate him. And he made a comment like, he made a comment that jokingly about Justin being at practice, he gave me like literally a 30-minute warning. And I was like, dude, I can't function like that. Like, I have 3 kids and I'm a single mom. Like, you got to give me more than that. So he joked about like, oh, I won't make Justin run too much. And I'm like, oh, he doesn't know who he's talking to. Like, so that didn't start off well. We're stopping this right now. I sent him an email and I said, and I feel terrible saying this because I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but you might have to edit this part. I said, I'm a single mom. I'm a widow with 3 kids. I lost my husband. I said, my boys lost their dad. I said, I don't surround my children with, I only surround my children with positive male role models. And if you are not up for the task, you need to tell me now. Well, he writes back very politely. Well, actually, I know your story. I was a cancer survivor, and it's probably why I have such a soft heart for your kids. And obviously, I got put in my place very quickly. Called my sister. She's like, well, that's what you get for opening your big mouth. She's super quiet. I'm not, obviously. So that's kind of how it started.
That just gave me goosebumps. I just got a little goosebump.
So it just kind of developed into this friendship. And when I say friendship, it was literally a true friendship. It never crossed the lines, anything. I would say the first 6 months, I didn't think of him anything other than, oh, he's a nice guy. I kind of felt at some point, maybe he felt sorry for me. I don't know. And then we just started talking all the time and texting, and, we'd hang out with the boys or, doing stuff. And I'm like, I even asked my brother, who was dating at the time and he's younger than me. I was like, is this what, are we dating? Like, is he just talking to me because he feels sorry for me? I mean, I had been out of the dating loop for 20 years. Right. And I was like, he just feels sorry for me. Is that why he's talking to me all the time? And my brother's like, guys don't take time just because they feel sorry for you. I was like, well, he's never crossed the line. I don't think I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Well, all right. Who went first?
Oh yeah. Who made the first move?
So I had
no, not the first move. I basically just said, you need to shit or get off the pot. I was like, I don't know what your problem is.
She came over to my house while I was cutting grass, and she approached me very aggressively. I get off the mower and I'm sweaty, and she's like, all right, what's the deal?
I was like, what's your problem?
You need to shit or get off the pod because...
Sorry, I don't know if we're supposed to say that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good. It's good.
Oh, okay.
So, and I'm kind of confused. He's like, what do you mean? We're friends, we're having a good time. Yeah. And I frogged her in the arm and no.
And so I was like, dude, I can't do this. Like, you're kind of screwed. Because at this point, obviously, I had feelings for him, and I was so confused because on top of raising my kids and losing my husband, my heart was very fragile, right? I mean, it was broke. I don't know how else to say that.
Right.
And I was trying so hard to protect my heart because I didn't want to get hurt. I knew I couldn't handle it. Actually, like, I knew I wouldn't be able to survive that. And so I was like, okay. And it's like, I felt like he was messing with me, but I knew that he wasn't. But I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't just be your friend. I feel like I have feelings for you. I don't know if that's what it is or I'm just lonely. I don't know. And he was like, I don't know. He hauled around like Dustin does. And I said, well, you can't call or text me anymore. Like, I can't do this, basically. So I left. I literally walked in the door in like 10 minutes. And he's like, oh my gosh, my lawnmower just broke. Like, dude, I don't care. Like, it's not my problem. We are not together.
What a dude move. I love it. Like, what can I randomly text now that I've been given an ultimatum?
Yeah, I just stuck my toe back in the water to see if she was like really mad. Was that for real?
I love it.
It was so frustrating. Anyways, a lot of our friends were like, what are you two doing? I'm like, we're just being friends. We're just friends. And well,
did you help him fix the mower? The mower?
I didn't even reply. I was trying to play it cool. So I like waited a couple hours.
I had to fix it myself.
So some mutual friends of ours that were just like, what is going on? Casually had a barbecue at their house. I don't think they intentionally planned to put us together, but that's where it all started. You actually made the first move. Like, you kissed me first. That's all I got to say. I did not even ask.
He knew that he had an opening at that point.
He asked if he could kiss me. And I was
a year and a half later.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, shoot, it was pretty good timing, I guess.
Yeah. Big thing about it is that he said to me one time, he's like, I can't fill Alan's shoes. And I said, well, I don't want you to. Like, you don't need to. And that's not what, I want it. He wasn't going to be him, and I didn't want him to be him. So our kids had already hung out. That was really hard too. Like, we had started dating, and we were like, oh, we don't want to tell him. Like, what do we tell him? We don't want to lie to him, but we were hanging out together all the time. And so I had kind of told my boys, and they were, I would say, indifferent to it. Obviously they, lost their dad, and we still grieve. You don't ever stop grieving. So that was difficult on my perspective. I think his son, Jet, was like pumped.
Well,
he told him not to date me because he would screw it up.
Well, yeah. So me and him were sitting there watching TV one night, and then I was like, okay, this is a pretty good time. So I said, so what do you think about me and Kim dating? And he just looked at me all serious. He goes, no. And I'm like, oh shit, it's already okay.
It's already done.
I said, why not? He goes, because you'll screw it up and we won't hang out anymore. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
So
a vote of confidence. And how old were those boys at that time?
So Nolan was 11 when Alan, he would have probably been 13 or 14, roughly, mm-hmm. I would say, maybe. Ooh, gosh. Yeah, because he was 16 when we got married. So probably 14. Yeah. And then Justin would have been 9. And then Michael was Justin would have been 8, I guess. And Michael was 6. And then Jet was 7 in between there. So
yeah.
So they were young enough to not be oblivious, but
But it wasn't like, I don't know. I have my son 50% of the time. So I was content with being single. And it wasn't, I would go on a date here and there, but I would do it every other weekend. It wasn't like I was bringing flavor of the week over and, hey, this is so, he probably thought, I don't know, I screwed, there was one screwed up marriage or whatever. I don't know if he was getting it off of that or what, but he thought I was going to screw that up. So
I was just going to ask, like, what was maybe some of your first challenges initially on bringing the family together? Yeah. So once you start dating, obviously you'd already hung out for a while. Did anything get different? Was it weird?
Well, I think when the boys realized that we weren't just hanging out as friends and that there was more to it, I think Jet was excited. I think he was all for it and excited. And I want to say that my kids, they hung out with Dustin so much and they thought he was the coolest guy and super funny. But then all of a sudden when he changed from just being a guy that my mom's hanging out with and we're hanging out with on weekends or whatever, he was now dating their mom. And that was the whole aspect of, Alan and their dad. And I think a lot, like the best quote Nolan ever said, obviously he was a teenager and that was a different aspect of where he was at in just being a teenager and grief. And he made the comment, like, we had a great weekend one time at the lake and we were all like, God, that was a great weekend. Everybody's in a great mood. And Nolan got home and he was just like, not in a good mood. Let's just put it that way. I was like, what happened? We just had the best weekend. And the best quote he ever said is, he goes, I like him. I just don't want to.
Oh yeah.
And I thought that was so perfect, because he was just, and I said, that's, I'm glad that you're honest. Like, he had a great time with Dustin and he loved having that male role model and that guy around. But I think Nolan felt so much guilt. I think that was really, his age probably So, and you could tell the difference in their ages too. You know, Justin just thought he was funny and super cool, and Michael latched onto him like a leech and he still is that way with them. And I think it's that, you know, we always talk about how we look back and, you know, Michael didn't really remember his dad. So that Dustin in essence is the only dad figure that he knows. So he just latches onto that. So, and that was probably, I think, the biggest challenge is trying to navigate their feelings on so many things and how that plays into effect. So
I'll ask Dustin. I know for me, that sounds a little bit like Chase. Like you could tell, like he liked me, but he didn't want to like me. His dad's still alive and they have a good relationship. And now him and I have a good relationship, but I can always tell like there's like a constant pull for him. So for you, different situation, dad has passed. What's that like for you you want to show up for these boys, but yet you're also like trying to show up in a way that doesn't step on any toes, things like that. What are thoughts that you've had about that over the years and challenges that you have gone through with that?
Let's see. I think going into it, I was just worried. I never wanted that. You know, you see it on TV and you see it with other people that, that awesome quote that, you know, the kid is very upset, mad, and they say, "You're not my dad." I was so scared of that, and he's right. But so I kind of, I'm not saying I tiptoed through, but I went in.
He treaded very lightly with them.
I treaded very lightly, and I think I can't say it was like a respect thing. I mean, obviously there was a lot of respect there, but I just treaded very lightly, tiptoeing through the whole situation. And I'm not saying I was on my best behavior, but I did not want to screw up because I did not want that said to me because I didn't know how I would react. And I never wanted to hear that. And I knew that I wasn't their dad, unfortunately.
I always say that Dustin, like his natural tendencies is to just move everything slow. That's how he functions in life. It's like, he's just woohoo, all relaxed, whatever. Probably the greatest
hence
gift.
The 18 months and you had to ask him to shit or get off the pot.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
And that's why I think, like, hence that, waiting for that. But it's, at the end of the day, as frustrating as it was sometimes for me, it was the greatest gift he could have ever given us. Because he developed that relationship with the boys on their terms and let them basically, I would say, let them lead. Don't you think?
Yeah.
And never overstepped his boundaries, never overstepped what they were comfortable with. And still to this day, he's incredibly respectful. I always feel like sorry for him on Father's Day. It's always a hard day for my kids and for me and for so many reasons. And I always feel bad because I don't feel like he gets to really celebrate that day because we're all just, it's just kind of a cloud above our heads for that. But he just goes with the flow. And I think he just lets them lead. And I think it's prime example when we watch the boys grow up and now his relationship with all of them is different, but in good ways. And he shows up for them too. And they know that. And so I just think he built a really strong foundation very slowly, and that helped.
And Dustin, you have one child of your own. Do you find, I know with my own kids, before I met Angie's kids, I was already having to figure out how to parent them differently. And now with Angie's kids, I'm parenting 6 children differently. So do you find as a dad, I have found that my friends that are men that struggle as fathers try to parent all their kids the same, which is what my dad did.
It's also what you started to, when we first started dating and blending our kids, you definitely initially started out parenting them all the same. And then it was like, oh my gosh, this is
like, I don't parent my own kids. Yeah. I don't parent my own kids that way. I can't parent Angie's kids. Yeah. So do you find that you actually know in your mind, I have to parent these kids differently? Or do you because I heard Kim say like he tries to show up for all of them individually. That's why I asked that.
I just don't parent at all.
Great answer.
I take the full role of good cop.
So you're saying, Kim, you and I are the bad cop in this deal?
Always. I am always
seriously.
Yeah.
This changes dynamic greatly for the podcast episode.
No, that's
we'll have the tides have turned.
That's our channel. Yeah.
I think is our biggest challenge in blending a family is that I am very structured. I am very he always says I am the rules, and it drives me nuts.
Rules, even for me.
He says that Kim is the rules, and everybody knows it. Well, I am very, I would say strict, but I'm very structured and I am the rules. It's my house. No,
she's owning it.
Yes.
Damn it, honey. I want to be known as the rules moving forward.
Okay. It drives me nuts because he says it to me all the time. Kim, you are the rules. I don't have any rules. But But the boys know that too. Like, they know that Dustin's not going to probably discipline them. And his form of discipline or his form of like a conversation is, I don't know if you should have done that.
Hey, so now I have a question for Kim then, because so Aric is the rules. He's the rules. I'm Dustin in this situation. That it's kind of like
they lit the house on fire. There was teamwork when they did it. Good job, boys.
I don't think they meant to.
Right. So how do you apply your rules then to Dustin's son coming into the relationship? Because that was our challenge with blended families, is that, my kids were used to me being kind of relaxed, and then Aric comes in, the enforcer, and it was like, oil and water for a little while.
Hitler.
Yeah.
It is. I will.
Yeah.
I will admit that I am a very strong-minded person. I'm not going to deny that. I am very stubborn. I mean, that quality isn't always good, but I also think that quality got me to where I've had a lot of hardships in my life, and I feel like that was a quality that got me to where I'm at right now. So I also take a little bit of pride in that too. But I've always been like that. And I actually said to him before we got married, I'm going to sound like a horrible person on this thing. I am the rules.
Welcome to my club. We're happy to have you in my camp. Yeah.
I actually said to him, I am not lowering my standards or my rules that I have for my children, for you. Like, I'm not doing that. This is what I expect from my kids. These are my expectations, and I'm not changing that. Now, I have mellowed because Dustin is very relaxed. I mean, like, this is an example. Michael he was like, 4 or 5, spilled a whole box of the 2-pound box of spaghetti noodles all over the floor at 7:00 in the morning, knocked the box over. They went everywhere. I come right in the kitchen. I probably would have been like, what in the world? And Dustin's like, just a little game of pick up sticks this morning.
Yeah.
I forgot.
That is Angie.
So he diffuses the situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was an accident. It's not like he took the box and shook it all over and go, look what I did. It was an accident.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. You guys have that in common. Meanwhile, me and Kim would come in hot. Like,
absolutely.
We got to go to work, school. What the we doing here? Come on.
I saved Michael's life that day.
You're probably right. So Jed is a lot like his dad in that regards, like just pretty goes with the flow kind of thing. So I think, and I'm not trying to sound, but I think Jed craved a little structure.
No, he absolutely,
because he didn't have a bedtime. He didn't have, there was just I think he craved it. And I think he has a little, I always joke that.
Sorry.
I joke that we always joke about that Jed is more like me than he is like his dad. Like,
absolutely.
He
likes her way. It's not like it's her way or the highway or nothing like that, but he would rather have her way because of the structure.
Yeah.
And he craves the routine, and Dustin never had a routine.
He loves it.
Yeah.
And he's kind of got a little OCD like I do. Like, he likes to know what's going to happen, and he likes to be on time. And Dustin's, putting his shoes on at, he's walking in at 1 minute till, and I'm already there at 10 minutes. So he craves that. And Jet likes that, I think, about me. So I think he's just kind of conformed. And Jet, from day one, I always said to him, I said, you are going to always get everything of me. You get the good, the bad, and the ugly. I will never treat you any differently. I will love you as just like I love my own kids, but I will also discipline you. I love you enough to discipline you just like I will my own kids. And so I've always been honest with them like that. Like, these are my expectations, and they're the same I have for you because I love you that much. And so I think he's just always, I think he respects that.
And I was on board with that, like, because I know he needed that. And so it's not like, man, you were really hard on him or, but the one thing that I did, and I still do, that I'm getting a lot better at is making excuses. Like, oh, well, he probably didn't know, or, oh, well, he probably was thinking this. And I was answering, I was doing the answering for him and making excuses.
But Dustin also Dustin sees the good in everybody, which is not a bad thing too. Like, Dustin, he just truly sees the good in everybody. He doesn't, because he has a really good, honest heart. And so he doesn't ever think that he's like, I don't think they ever liked us.
But if he was being a punk, he was being a punk. And, but I don't know. I would make excuses and stuff, but I wouldn't do that for her kids because one, if Justin did something and he's the middle, if Justin did something, I didn't have to make an excuse because she had it already taken care of in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
and
it's true. He doesn't even know half the time.
No, I don't. I'm not naive, but she was just like, "Did you see what just happened?" And I'm like, "No, what happened?" And it's like in Walmart or at her family gathering. No, I didn't see that guy do that, or I didn't see him act like that. I don't know.
Yeah. So we're totally different like that, but we've kind of, I would say, conformed to each other.
Then when she points it out, then I get mad because I missed it, and then I'm like, so.
But don't you think like the differences, being able to bring the differences together is where like the magic happens? Because just what you guys are both talking about, I think Aric and I could relate to everything that you just said in either his traits or my traits. But even like the structure and discipline for kids, I initially going into when we were trying to blend our family, like I cringed when Aric would like get onto my kids or get, want to put some very rigorous discipline because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're not used to that. What's going to happen? And now those little shits will be like, oh, we love the way Aric is. Mom, we actually feel bad when you get mad at Aric about it. And I'm like, what? But they do. I do think kids naturally do want the discipline and the rigor around it. It's hard as shit and it's not fun, but I
just keep telling them it's biblical.
Oh God. Yeah.
Fool is the man who doesn't discipline his child.
No, I've always been very structured, and even my kids now, they're older. Obviously, I have a 21-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old, and Jet's going to be 16. So they're obviously our conversations and things are different. They're not babies anymore and stuff like that. So I've always been structured like that, and I've always been like kind of the rules, and I've always had, and I think my kids don't know any different, but I think Jet literally, I think he just craved it so much that he just kind of like melted right in. And I do say that Dustin, he made me a more like, okay, Kim, that's, the spaghetti noodles on the floor is not the end of the world. Right. And I'm not saying I didn't know that because I know that there's worse things in the world that can happen to you. But I think I was more like short fused or just easy to get frustrated. And his famous words, and he says it all the time, is just relax. And it drives me nuts. Like no one even made a board in shop class that said relax because
Girl, I know that's nails on a chalkboard for me too, because I think as strong-minded women, you just naturally feel like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And so there's so much pressure, and we do it to ourselves sometimes. And then when you have husbands that are more chill and then they tell you that it's not helpful. It's not really helpful sometimes to say relax because then you just want to kick them in the.
They love that about him. Like as much as they craved Jets craved the structure that I had, Nolan and Justin and Michael craved the fact that he was so chill all the time, and so I was like, so it was just like a really good balance. You could totally tell what they needed. they weren't getting from, one place to the other.
Yeah.
But I also can't fathom trying to raise three boys who lost their dad. I would think you would have to be kind of a hard ass at times to keep them in line. Honestly, I've got two boys. I've got three kids, two boys. And it's like, as a dad, I'm like, I'm gonna be a hard ass because these little guys don't know what they're doing.
I joked when Alan passed away. Nolan was like in 7th grade, and it had been like 6 months after Alan passed away, and he lied to me about something. So after football practice, I told him to grab his tennis shoes, and he was going to run stairs. And it was late, like they were getting ready to turn the lights off, and I think he thought I was bluffing. And so I went over there and I was like, get your shoes on. Like if they're going to turn the lights off, it's going to be really dark running. And he's like, Mom. And so a football coach dad comes over to me and he's like, Kim, what's going on? And I was like, well, he's running stairs. And he's like, why? I'm like, because he lied to me. And they all were super close with Alan. And so knew he's like, Kim, he's going through so much. And I said, he is. And I said, but I am a one-man show. I said, there's 3 of them and 1 of me. And I said, he can grieve every day. He can miss his dad. He can be sad. He can cry. But I can never allow behaviors that I wouldn't have allowed before to be okay. Like, if I let that happen, they're literally going to eat me alive.
I love that.
And I knew that.
That's awesome. I love that.
And I knew that. Like, I knew that I had to keep that structure and I had to keep the rules, be the rules. Mm-hmm. Because there was 3 of them and 1 of me. And we all know how hard it is to raise kids anyways. Yes. But I couldn't I didn't have, I mean, everybody knows, I think in general, or that's how it was when Alan was here. Like I could yell at the kids to put their shoes away, 10 times. He could walk in the kitchen and be like, why are you yelling? I'm like, well, they won't put their shoes away. And he'd be like, boys, put your shoes away. And they just literally put their shoes away. And I'm like, what in the world?
Dad voice.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have that person to back me. This was obviously before Dustin came in the picture. And he doesn't usually back me now. He's just like, whatever she says. But ditto. He always says ditto.
You're the rules, Kim. You're the rules.
Right.
And it's true, because then it's hard for me to, like, when do I start? When do I start enforcing rules, or when do I become the bad guy?
Yeah.
I don't know when to start, or who do I start on?
All of them together, same time. That's what I would suggest.
Line them up. That's what I would say.
And well, I'm just, it's okay. The sink's got dishes in it. All right, I'll be the jerk. We do 2 loads of laundry a day,
Yeah, probably.
and we fold them, and they got their baskets, and then they got it once their baskets are overflowing or something, or hanging clothes, and I'll be like, all right, boys,
When you have time.
when you get time, we need to put our clothes away. All right.
What?
Yeah.
And I'm like, boys, now.
Yeah, no. 3 days later, the baskets are overflowing, and I'm like, what the hell?
Because nobody listens.
Nobody listens. Nobody listens to me. So I just let her do it. Let her eat.
Let her eat.
Yeah. I need you to step in.
We're not gonna believe this, because this is just like flowing so good. We're already over on time, and I know I have one question, and then Angie's going to end with a question. My question to you would be, what have you found to be most rewarding for your relationship / family since you've blended and come together as a group?
I know.
Okay. All right.
Mine is how my son is turned out.
Oh, yeah.
Because of her. I won't take
We're in the goosies, honey.
Yeah, no, and I'm kind of getting emotional talking about it, but I'm not saying my kid would have been a wreck. But I don't know. I got a good kid. She's got great kids, and I think a lot, like every day, like I wonder if he would be out drinking and lying and doing all this stupid stuff. And I know because of her, he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders.
Thank God Kim's the rules.
Best.
Absolutely. That's why I say I tell her to bring it. I know she hates being the bad guy, but I'm like, bring it.
I would say for me is that he says it often. That he can't fill Alan's shoes, but he feels like his purpose is, to be whatever they need him to be. And he does that for them in different ways. And so I always said I'm a great mom, but I was a decent dad, but it wasn't a role that I could fill by myself. And I noticed that every day, that what they were missing that I couldn't do, no matter how hard I wanted to be both, I couldn't do it. So he does that for them. I think that's probably what I would say.
I'll take that.
That's so awesome. I love it. You guys have a great story. And I think the beautiful part of just the whole podcast is just sharing the hard shit, right? But then also seeing the beauty in all of it. Like that's beautiful through the pain and the challenges. And yeah, it's hard to try to be a mom and a dad, and that's a heavy load to carry. So we've decided that when we have guests on our show, we're going to ask like the same question at the end for every guest. So the question is, what is your favorite family tradition in your blended family?
They tell me, son, Hank, why do you drink? Oh, wait, not that family tradition?
Not that family tradition.
Okay, my fault.
Eric does like to pop in a song every once in a while.
Guys,
when you least expect it.
Sorry.
I thought yours was karaoke. So.
Oh, that's just Eric's tradition. Yeah. Nobody else.
I would say mine is that we try really hard to obviously eat supper together at least once or twice a week, if that's possible. But when we do eat together as a family, even if we're out somewhere, we always pray first, and then we always say what we're grateful for. And even if it's like, I'm grateful for, new socks today, whatever it is, my kids go around the table and say what they're grateful for. And I just think that's a good, just as fast and busy pace as our lives are, that it's a good stop to remember. And I usually send them a random text because half the time my kids don't text me back, and I send a random text to our family one. I'm like, the first person that can tell me something great that happened to them today wins $10, and it's a miracle. It's amazing how fast everybody
respond. That's a
cool idea. So it's just stuff like that. I think that we just try really hard to remind them how grateful they are, no matter what's happened to you in life. There's, it could always be worse than you. There's something to be grateful for. So I think that would be mine. What would be yours? Oh gosh.
Hit pause.
Hit pause. Edit button.
I was so into her answer, and then I kind of forgot.
Should have the answer. You could just go with her answer too, if that's your favorite. It doesn't have to be something different.
We do some good stuff.
I always said a funny story, it just makes me laugh, is so we got married on a Saturday, obviously, and it was we didn't go on our honeymoon until a couple months later. So it was Sunday, and we were loading up the car, and Michael was, 5 years ago, Michael would have been 11 or not 10. No, he was 9. And he's we were grabbing something. He's like, Dad, Dustin, can you put this in the back? And we kind of thought, well, that's really weird because he's never missed up or called him Dad. So I thought that was odd. No big deal.
Right after the wedding.
That was literally the day after.
The day after the wedding.
And so then a couple hours later, he said something. He goes, "Hey, Dustin, Dad." And we're like, I said, "Mike, why are you saying that?" And he goes, "Well, you're married now. So do I have to call him Dad?" I was like, "No, buddy." And he was like, "Oh, because that is so hard."
That's funny.
It's just it was just cute how little kids think, their mindset. He was just like, "Oh crap, I can't do this. It's so hard."
That is too funny. I think Chase one time asked if he was going to have to change his name when we were talking about getting.
He did.
Like, what?
Do I have to change my last name to Brimmer when you get married?
Well, Nolan said, I'm not taking Kerwin. I was like, Nolan, you don't have to do that. That's not going to.
That is so
we were thinking the worst and everything.
Well, that's a lot of vowels, right? We go back to that. So
too funny.
I would say on my little, what is it called?
Family tradition.
Family tradition is
family tradition.
Yes. Little Hank. I would say just like our trips. We've got 2 weeks out of the year that we can actually do something with Dead Week in football. But I think just that the time that we spend in those, we usually get at least one of them with everybody, and we make the most of it. And I don't know, it's as long as it's not long trips in the car, where the kids get slap happy, and everything is funny, and it's not, just the memories that we make on those. We were talking about our Florida trip last year.
I think Dustin says all the time that he always writes this in a card when he gives me a card, and he always says that, "Thank you for giving me a family." And I feel like that too. I had a family, obviously, and it was broken. And then, I still had my boys, and that was our family, but it feels whole now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
That's exactly what I was thinking when you guys were talking. It's it's the things that what is your family tradition are things that are what a family does together, right? The trips, the sitting around the dinner table. That's kind of what I think what a lot of kids, when they feel the family vibe, it's when everybody's together.
Right.
And that's why it took me so long, because I had a lot to think about, because this wasn't a girl online, or this wasn't, this guy's like the mayor. This guy's like the mayor of Wardsville. So she's got everybody in her corner.
He said they were going to burn crosses in his yard if he screwed it up.
She's got kids, and she lost her husband. This wasn't let's try it. Well, I'll try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Whatever. So I had to do a lot to thinking.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because you were taking it so seriously, right?
Yeah, it wasn't go in, dive in, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. There were 4 hearts at stake here, and so it wasn't.
Look at you.
Well,
little softy over there.
I was.
He did say one time that he said, I was just so scared that I knew I was never going to cross the line with you until I knew 100% that if I crossed the line, I was probably going to marry you. I was like, oh gosh, I didn't know I was going to marry you when I started dating you.
Then you came over all bitchy, demanding shit.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of thinking.
Taking it seriously, and you're losing your mind. My God.
That day on the lawnmower was a stressful night for me.
Oh, goodness.
My gosh.
What a great story.
It's too funny.
Well, guys, thank you for being our very first remote guests here
Thanks
on
for
Blended.
asking us. We appreciate it.
Super fun. We'll have to have you guys back on too.
Yeah, a lot more we could have talked about, but thank you again. Thanks for being a part of Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. And Angie and I will see you next week. As always, God bless.
Thank you for listening to Blended, Blessed, and Always a Mess. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at blendedblessedalwaysamess.com.
Reach out to us on any of our social channels. We would love to hear from you. Have a great week.